Hi, I wanted to just offer some feedback as we're going into this last week because I'm asking you to do a little bit more reflection on the book finding process and your sources. I wanted to give you some feedback from the earlier discussion on that in early July. The first thing is that I just really appreciate you guys building on existing strengths, things that you're already doing, things that are already moving for you. And I really encourage that. I'm hoping that I haven't sent any sort of message that you need to stop what you're doing because your ways of getting books to come to your classroom, your ways of getting ideas from your kids, those are all existing strengths that you have. Um, the first theme that I wanted to get to, and this kind of came up way down towards the bottom as people were making comments with each other, is that the things that you can tell are going to be the hardest routines for you to get going. Those are the things where I want to suggest for you that you get your kids involved, and that combining the interest inventory work that you do with book finding is something that could become an additional strength for you. And some of that work, the labor that goes into finding what books can go on this list, how do I get the list together, those kinds of things, those could all be done with the kids' help. I can imagine kids being the ones who go out and scour the school library journal, the Kirkus reviews, look through the mock Caldecott and Newbery lists and so on, and start giving you your ideas. So that's one thing that I want to get out there for you is that idea that the interest inventory and the book finding will probably be more automatic if you find some way to get them to come together so that they're not separate routines that you have to manage and think about. Uh, Along with that, the trend of following other teachers is something that came up over and over again. Absolutely a strength that you should play to, and that can be true on blogs, as some people mentioned. Find favorite teachers who are good bloggers and get those books out there. And it's not just teachers. There's some great moms out there who are doing blogs on children's literature as well. But Goodreads, Amazon lists, sometimes you can find by teacher, and the Pinterest that you're talking about. And three or four of you emphasize the fact that Google may be one of the keys here, that if you have something that you're thinking about and you're able to get keywords in there that bring back the books for you, oftentimes the top hits on Google are going to be links to Goodreads and Pinterest. And if you don't get the Pinterest ones in there, just put Pinterest in the keyword search and then the Pinterest lists will start to come up. Once you start finding those people, you can start following them and friending them and so on. But this is also something where you may want to just get together with some people in the class and share some of those resources, people that you've found. One of the things that I haven't demonstrated so much with Goodreads, someone brought this up on the list, is that the app that you can get for your smartphone or your tablet, it has a scanner on it. So you can actually open up your Goodreads on your phone, put it over the book, and it'll scan it into your shelves for you. So if you're gathering the books together, you can put things into your library that way. And some of you may have already added them to your library just by your searching and so on. But once you've got your classroom library going, you can start cataloging things that way as well. Uh, a couple of people brought up that idea of having the classroom library. Yeah, you can actually make a shelf called My Classroom Library. Put your name in it, the classroom name, the class number, whatever you want to, and start putting those shelves together. And I do have to emphasize that with the technology. I think a couple of you brought up this question. Shelves are just like tags. They're not like actual shelves. So if you take a book and you put it in originally on your EDRD 314, 614 shelf, and then you put it on your classroom library shelf, and then you put it on the historical fiction shelf, it's on all of those shelves because those shelves are really just tags that you tag that title with for yourself. So you can shelve a book as many different ways as you want to, and you can see that if you go to your My Books. Over on the right hand side, you'll look down and you'll see which shelves it's on. You can add 5, 6 different shelves. And I have that in my books. If you want to see examples of books that are cataloged on multiple shelves, just go to my Goodreads account and look at my books. And as you go down the list of books, you'll see, oh, it's shelved on 4 or 5 different shelves. Um, I have to say that I feel like I need to give you permission to keep going ahead with the strength of finding books that are high interest, that are new releases, that are the free books that you can get for Scholastic, that are whatever you can find from Goodwill and so on. I know that a lot of you see those as your strengths, but a lot of you need to know that it's great to use those sources that you're already using, and that in some of the pushing that I've done for finding books that can sustain interesting conversation and so on, that I don't want to tip it towards the idea that there's good literature and bad literature. I think that it's just all about what kinds of aesthetic experiences we have and what we're ready to support. You find what works for you and your kids. Um, Another great idea that came up was this idea of instead of focusing on just having a standing collection, the books that are yours and are always in your room, something that you need to be really thinking about is the classroom library as a constant circulation or the constant flow. And I want to re-emphasize this by noting that Audra, who taught down in St. Vrain School District, who helped me to really develop this idea with her second grade classroom, her key piece of equipment was a crate. And taking that crate to the public library every week, getting 40 or 50 books, bringing it to the classroom, taking those back out to the public library at the end of the week, that was her constant flow of books. Now, she had a classroom library that she had going all the time, but the combination of this crate of books with her kids giving her the interest inventory ideas created a different kind of flow through the library. And she saw a lot more books that year as a teacher than she would have otherwise, because she was following the interest inventory, bringing in crates of books every week. Um, let's see. Author study. This is an interesting theme that came up. If you want to see authors, go to CCIRA. CCIRA brings to Denver every year between 10 and 15 of the best children's literature authors. They put them in sessions, so you get to go see those authors talk about their books, their most recent work, trends that they've had over the years, and so on. And then they do book signings, so you get to go up and take your copy of the book and have a minute or two to talk with them while you're standing in line, and listen to the two or three other people ahead of you in the line, what they get to ask and get answered as well. So let's see. Uh, oh, uh, One of you had brought up fake lore, and I just want to get out there again the caveat that I don't want you to purge any books from your classroom library, unless you feel like it's just too crowded in your collection. The fake lore books. Keep them and use them the same way that I do with demonstrating things that, like, I bring in rainbow fish and share bears. Those are books that I just they bother me, but I don't take anything out of my classroom library if I feel like kids are probably going to go read it. If the kids are going over and reading those fake lore books and they enjoy them, you use the real folklore to take them a step further, or you get them into the real folklore and then you help them see why the fake lore is maybe less appropriate. So use your resources, and a classroom library can be as eclectic and full of whatever you want to as you can get it. So let's see. Along with author study, I appreciated that connection, a really strong connection between the 642 class and this one. One of the key things to understand about an aesthetic approach to literature as opposed to an efferent or a here's what I'm trying to teach you approach to literature is that the aesthetic moment is really captured well when a person comes to you and says, look what I made. And it sounds to me like that's what you guys are trying to capture with the author study, the idea that an author is saying to us, inviting us, saying, here, look what I made. And creating that humanity to authors is going to go a long way to helping you and your kids appreciate the aesthetic moments in literature where you're thinking about who made this, how did they make it, and why do they want to invite us to look at this. And that invitation moment of, here, look what I made, that's that's what kids do when they make art. The people who become professional authors and illustrators have just taken that a step further and made it into a profession later on in life. So let's see. Public library. I just want to emphasize for you that your public libraries, all of the local public libraries, do have access to the resources that you want, not just at UNC. So Prospector, Interlibrary Loan, those are all things that I think not only your school libraries, but also your public libraries have. I know that Poudre libraries have these. I know that Thompson, I know that the High Plains District has all of these resources already. So keep that in mind. When you start running into books that just aren't there at the public library, use this prospector service. It already exists. Also, as some of you brought up, the question of audiobooks, it's not just for you and your book finding. That's a great thing, because once you get into your book finding mode through the school year, being able to listen to books in the car on the commute is a great way to just get a little bit more than you might otherwise. But the key thing here is that's the question. Do you have all of the resources that you need for your kids to be able to listen to books? In the old days, you had to have this huge audio table with all of the headphones and a station, and everybody had to listen to the same tape or CD at the same time. Now we have so many resources for listening to audio that we shouldn't have to rely on that. I mean, you can get old MP3 players and old iPods from people that they're not using anymore, old phones that might be going away, and help kids to listen to books. Overdrive is a resource that you mentioned. That's something that's free through the public library for most of your kids. Hoopla is another service that most of the local libraries are subscribing to. It's for audiobooks mostly, but sometimes for ebooks too. And the last thing I need to mention is that YouTube is just full of people reading books out loud. And that's kind of fun too, because sometimes they show the book and you get to see the page turn and so on. So it's a great way for kids to actually do some following along. And some of the people who read those books out loud are just kind of fun to listen to. So I appreciate all of the time that you spent thinking about flow of books, and I hope that this last week of reflection on them, that you're able to take that maybe just a step further, report on some of the things that you've done differently over the past couple of weeks. Talk to you soon.